Welcome to What's the Story? My name is Janice Hermson. I'm your host. I am here today with Doug Ashby, and it looks like I probably need to adjust your camera there, Doug. You're taller than my camera thought you were. So we've kind of cut off your head. I tried a new camera scene, and so here's where we are. I don't know if I can. Nope, that makes it worse. All right. No, that's actually. You think that's better? Nah.
Yeah, that's better.
Nah, I don't know. You got to move over if you're going to be there. Scooch over a little bit. Okay. So it looks like we've lost it. There you go. All right. That's a little bit better. I'll fix that in a little bit. Yeah. Let's see what happens if I... Oh, that's better. That's okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you're all right. Well,
wait just a second. Wait a minute.
Oh, there you go. Hey, now we got you. See, we didn't have to fix that camera at all.
We completely redo the room instead of touching the camera.
There you go. That's perfect. That's what I get for not testing before I move my camera. Test the scene. And I did, but I'm not as tall as you are, because I did sit there, but I'm not as tall. So anyway, you are listening to What's the Story? My name is Janice Hermson, as I said, and this is Doug Ashby. He's my co-host. We have another co-host who's kind of on a little sabbatical right now. He's helping his mom. She's had some challenges, and so he is the guy that's gone out there and helping her out. So we're happy that Ed Knoll can be doing that for his mom, and we'll talk to him more about that. He was going to be on, but they had some things they had to do. So anyway, and it kind of ties into, we have a guest today coming in about 3:20. His name is Stewart Handte, and he's going to talk about something that happened to him in his life. He's got a story to share with us, and some of that will relate to what I just talked about. So anyhow, you look like you're either puzzled over there or you're reshifting your pages. I don't know what you're doing.
That's just nervous energy.
Nervous energy. Okay. Well, I do want to remind everybody, as I always do, that I'm hoping that you will, let's just 1 second here, that you will check out my Substack, which is hermson.substack.com. And here is, I'm sharing the stream with you if you're watching live. If you're on the radio, sorry you can't see it, but we got a picture on the stream, which is our word of the day. So I try to always put a picture out there that, can you guess what the word of the day is and what comes to mind when you see the warning, when you see this warning. So, and then I give you a little insight into what we're doing for our show. And a little plug for our Freedom Series cups. We love our little mugs. Those are 10 ounces, and you can just click on there and you'll be able to check them out and see if you're interested, buy us a coffee there, or get one of the mugs. Either way, you can click on that and you'll be able to do either one. I did have a comment this time, and it was from Susie. She said her guess is nuclear, as in Trump. So I thought that was a pretty good guess, don't you think? I mean, based on the picture.
Sure.
Right? Although that's not the word. So thanks, Susie, for sharing your thoughts. And so now, Doug, you want to share what our word of the day is?
Sure.
Fire away.
Oh, it's, I like words like this because not only have we used them in the past, but they're a good word, to be acquainted with and really know what the impact is. It's deleterious.
Right.
And it has a bunch of synonyms, but let me go to the back page here.
Well, let's first talk about what it means.
Oh, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah. Huh. It's harmful, often in a subtle or unexpected way.
Yeah.
Well, that wouldn't be subtle as far as that radioactivity is concerned.
Sure.
But but it would be unexpected.
Damaging or destructive.
Right. So there you go. That's the meaning of that. And I guess some people, Susie, might agree, if they don't like Trump, they're going to say, yes, that's what it is. So I laughed when I saw that, because I thought, oh, you don't understand what that's going to mean.
Yeah, and it was first used in 1587.
Long time ago, yeah.
You know what, when you look at that, how on earth, I can say the latter part of the 1500s, I understand, 1587, how can they be so specific?
I know. Well, and I pulled up, and this is from Merriam-Webster, and I pulled up a little paragraph that they talked about the deleterious effects. However, often not so obvious, it's used to describe things that are harmful in ways that are unexpected. Although most often used in formal speech and writing, it's far from rare. And it even pops up from time to time in film and television. Did you read this on the Merriam-Webster, or did you not pull that up?
No, I did pull.
Yep. Anyway, so what they say is that they used it in 7 of 9 warns the Doctor in an episode of Star Trek Voyager, the nebula is having a deleterious effect on all the ship's technology. So there's a nice use of it, right? Or in a Magnum PI series, if you're younger, you're not going to even know who Magnum PI is, but it's shocking what a deleterious effect a regimen of nothing but mushrooms can have on a man. So TV shows, movies, whatever, there you go. So now let's go to our synonyms from there.
Oh, there's a bunch. Actually, you'll have to excuse me if I'm a little redundant on this, because I printed them from 3 different sources, because each source had additions to it.
Huh.
But here we go. Detrimental, adverse, injurious, hazardous, dangerous. There's one leads to the other, and I think that's how we come up with the words that aren't really synonyms, because
right.
they each one is a little
right.
weakening of the last.
Yes,
So
exactly.
anyway,
I agree
dangerous, toxic. Now, if I were writing and I wanted a word.
Oh, shame on me. I did not. Silence.
Do you remember Groucho Marx and when the bird used to come down for their word of the day? Or maybe.
Oh, I don't know if I do. I think I kind of do.
But anyway, that's what you heard in the background. That was the word of the day.
That was my word of the day. There you go.
I don't know if toxic, if I were looking for a word, if I was writing, deleterious could fit in via the ones we just said, but toxic, I don't think so. Harmful would be there. Unhealthy, deadly, noxious, gaseous, ruinous, lethal, venomous. See that? I don't see that either. And is the adverse baneful? Oh, that's
baneful.
Word. Yeah, you don't hear that word.
No, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, evil. I wouldn't.
No, that's not.
Well,
boy, they've really gone off track on that, don't you think?
Well, see, I think that's what it is they go down this road and each one weakens the last.
Yeah.
And so that's how they come up with it. Harmful, hurtful, ill. See, ill doesn't fit in there either.
No, not at all. No, this is a warning. But this is
injurious kind of
yeah,
would, but not ill. Mischievous.
Weird.
Maybe. Noxious.
Boy, those are a stretch, though.
Prejudicial. And how about this? Wicked. W-I-C-K-E-D.
I'd actually have to look that up and see if it really did mean that. I'm not even really, I don't think I've ever used that word. How about you?
No, I haven't.
No. Interesting. All right, so that's our word of the day, deleterious.
Well, I mean, it's a word to use in simple sentences, because you can say, I looked out the window, I saw the smog, and boy, that is deleterious to your health.
There you go.
I mean, there's just so many ways that you could use that.
That flows pretty nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I had, I thought it was kind of funny, because we've had some people, because we had flooding in our house, and we had people come in and they were fixing the basement and this and that, and they asked if I would do, a little compliment. What do they call that? To when they're through, post.
Do a review.
A review.
Yeah, do a review.
Well,
sure.
That's a hard word to come with a review. And so, I started it and it was on my computer and we were sitting there and I said, well, is this okay for the start of it? And she says, boy, I can sure tell you're a writer. Well, I don't know if that was good or not. Well, wouldn't you, with a review, wouldn't you want something to work into it?
Sure.
Where the one sentence would take you to the next, so you're actually going to, rather than just to say they were great, they did good work.
Yeah, but most people, that's all they're going to do. Or they were terrible.
Exactly. Be very succinct,
right? That's right. But not you, Doug.
I
Not
know.
you. No, she's right.
And not only that, there's a story behind everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a story behind everything. You got that right. So anyway, so that is our word of the day, which we do every week. And always looking for interesting, different types of words to share because, gotta keep interested in that, right? You said you had a story. We've got Stewart coming on in about 5 minutes or so. Did you have something you wanted to share before we do that? Because my stuff's going to be pretty long. So I'd rather
well,
not.
there's actually a couple, and they are very, very brief.
Good. I can always count on you, Doug. Your book blitzes aren't blitzes, but you can be brief with a lot of this stuff.
Well, you know what? I had this will kind of set up. L.A. wildfire victims are forced to wait 18 months for toxic ash and debris removal before rebuilding, thanks to government red tape.
But I watched a video of Trump, and I believe it was the mayor. I don't know if Newsom was there, but I know the mayor was there, and they were talking about expediting that. Did they mention that in that article at all?
The federal program will pay contractors to haul away rubble at no cost to the residents, but they will have to work through layers of bureaucracy. So it's not the physical doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Trump was saying, well, I have emergency powers, so do you. Why don't you use them? He says, I used mine.
Well, I think here is why, including the Los Angeles County government, Federal Army Corps of Engineers, and Environmental Protection Agency.
Oh, my.
And I would be shocked if these agencies talk to each other.
Yeah, that's true.
So once you start, you have to, of course, you have to get so-and-so's red, stamp on this, stamp of approval.
Sure.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, and not only that, why does it have to go to a toxic dump?
Right.
This is, well, it just amazes me. First of all, let's go back to the origin of this. It was severe heat that damaged this. Now, how many toxins are going to live through a wildfire?
Well, Mr. Firefighter, why don't you tell us?
None. Zero. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. It is.
It's just,
yeah.
I think it's everybody jumping on board so they can, and I was going to say probably there's fees. I'm sure there is.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm sure of that.
But I people are saying they want to rebuild. I don't know if I'd want to rebuild in the same place.
That's interesting. Well, after the fire that we had out in Pleasant Valley, we had 3 homes in our neighborhood that burned. The fire came directly through our property, and I didn't feel like I didn't want to be there. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And maybe because of the nature of the fire, that might have been it. But even so, we'd lived there a long time, and we'd never had a fire, ever. Yeah. I mean, there'd been some on the hill, but our little volunteer fire department took care of it. But then they got rid of the volunteer fire department.
Well, I'll make a statement, and somebody's going to have to prove me wrong on this. There's an arsonist out there.
Oh, yeah. No, there was somebody that actually did report on that. Yeah. And they had people that were like filming people doing dumb things like that.
Well, here's something, and I've often wondered this: can you shoot an arsonist?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, isn't it a good question?
It is. I do not know if that's a possibility. Is that legal?
Well,
if you see him trying to burn something down?
Well, exactly, because
I don't know.
he could be taking
With
someone's
warning,
life.
maybe.
Sure.
Probably not in California, though.
Yeah. Well,
maybe in Nevada, but not.
In California, they would praise the guy that was setting the fires and prosecute the guy that because he had a gun and shot it.
Yeah, probably, huh? Ay, ay, ay. Well, why don't we got a little break here, so why don't we bring Stewart in? He's here, so let's bring him on the stage. Hello, Stewart. This is Stewart Handte. How are you today?
We're a little wet up here in Northern California. It's been raining.
Could you crank him up a little bit? Excuse me.
Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
It's a little wet there?
Yeah, it's been raining consistently now for about 3 days straight. We've got some significant flooding going on up here in Northern California, and some of the rivers are at flood stage. So it's
wow.
Yeah. So little change from living in Reno for the years I did. We had some rain there before, but not like this. This is
yeah. It's a lot more. So, Stewart, I did a kind of a little bit of an intro, not really anything in depth, though. I just teased it a little bit about the fact that we have one of our co-hosts is taking care of his mom right now, and she's actually in a rehab facility. And I thought, oh, well, this is timely, right? Yep. So why don't you share a little bit about who you are and kind of what your story is, because that's what we're all about.
I appreciate it. And thank you very much, first of all, for having me, Jan. It's important to get this information out to the public because as the days, weeks, months, and years go by, sooner or later, all of us can be subjected to the horrors of living in assisted care facilities. I was actually born in Brooklyn, New York, raised in Vermont for the first 14 years of my life. My parents and I moved to Nevada, Reno in 1974. My mom's cousins actually were the owners of Harold's Club.
Oh.
So my parents got jobs right away. My dad got involved in law enforcement. My mom was a registered nurse in Vermont, and she continued her occupation out here in Reno. She worked at Washoe-Med and also worked at Sparks Family and Veterans Administration before she retired. So I graduated from Worcester High School in Reno and went to University of Nevada, Reno, graduated in 1983 with a degree in criminal justice, and went on to become a law enforcement officer in the state of Nevada. 20 years of that was Nevada Highway Patrol, which does not exist anymore. And then I also was a deputy sheriff. I was an adult probation officer. I was 2 tribal chiefs of police and the sheriff of Mineral County for about a year and a month. So that encompassed 30 years of a law enforcement profession.
Wow.
Oh, can I stop you right there just for a second?
Go ahead.
Just before you came on, we were talking about arsonists. If I see an arsonist, can I shoot him?
Well, the old story is that if you fear someone's life's in imminent danger, if somebody's going to light a wildland fire, you can do whatever measures legally necessary to stop that person. So I would not say shooting them. I would warn them, and if they continue to do it, and you're trying to protect people, I would say you're in your God-given right to do just that, and you would be saving people's lives because potentially people's lives could be lost in a rampant wildland fire. So, there was an old saying about people breaking into one another's house. I believe Judge Mills Lane said this years ago. If you shoot the guy, drag him inside the house.
Yeah.
So that was Mills Lane, by the way.
Well, that was Mills Lane.
This is going to be a real loose interpretation of what you just said. If I shoot him, I'm going to drag him back into the fire.
Well, that actually, sir, that would destroy the evidence. And I'm not saying it'd be a good thing. I'm not saying it'd be a bad thing. But if you got a serial arsonist out there, with his setting fires to destroy people's houses and potentially their lives, I think you'd be well covered under the law to do. I did what I thought was necessary to prevent this person from
especially in the shadow of what's gone on in California with their wildfires. That
Correct.
would So
the serial arsonists are very dangerous, mentally unhinged people.
Absolutely.
They will stop at nothing to, I mean, they take gratification, and even you've heard of sexual gratification from lighting
Absolutely.
fires. Yeah. So,
Doug was, just so you know, Stuart, Doug was a battalion chief in Los Angeles County.
thank you for your
so
service,
for
Doug.
quite a few
Thank you.
years.
That was, yeah.
So, well, the same to
that
you.
was-
Thank you for your
I'm
service.
sorry, I didn't mean to get you sidetracked, but I had to get that
Okay,
answered.
Doug, you can get me sidetracked. I'm okay with that. It's you know, the old statement that firemen and cops don't get along is a bunch of baloney.
Yes, it is. It really
We got
is.
along. I got along great. I mean, we'd always tease each other, but when the rubber met the road, or when it was time for real action to come into play, firefighters and law enforcement officers worked like peanut butter and jelly. I mean, it really
Well,
was.
I'll tell you what, I could swear by the LA County Sheriff's Department because, you know, as a firefighter out on an incident, if we needed a deputy, we'd say, hey, go kick that guy's ass. He would go over, kick his ass, then come back and say, why was I doing that? You know, there would be no question.
Well, I mean, when, you know, not everybody wants to see a law enforcement officer, but everybody wants to see a fireman when there's times of trouble. And let me tell you, my hat's off to those firemen down there who faced imminent danger by just facing flames that are upwards of 75 to 100 feet tall. I mean, who does that? I mean, who runs to the sounds of gunshots, and who runs into burning buildings to save people?
Exactly.
You guys are both crazy, is what you're telling us.
Yes,
all.
ma'am. We're both crazy. And I dedicated.
Well,
30
you know,
years of life to
it's very simplistic why people do like firefighters is because when they come, 99 times out of 100, they solve whatever the problem is.
Right.
You know, you know, somebody's sick, we take care of them, we send them to the hospital. If a deputy comes or if a police officer comes, there's a high likelihood he's going to go to jail. Now, who are you going to like in those two scenarios?
I think, Doug, you just answered that question just by yourself. Yes, correct.
Absolutely.
So,
All right, Stuart. So let's get you back on track, and thank you for answering his question, because it was funny because it was right before you came on that we were talking about this, and he posed that question. I said, "Well, oh, okay. We'll see if Stuart has anything to say."
I hope I answered it in a most proficient way. How's that?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Well said, and a nice scenario with it. All right, so let's get back to your story. So you've had a long career with the police force in some method or another.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
go ahead.
I want to interject that when I was a state trooper of the Highway Patrol, I also became a state and federal whistleblower against my own department.
Okay, how did that go?
Well,
Probably not well, I'm guessing.
We went up against a power-hungry person, and I'm going to mention names today because names need to be mentioned. He was the former chief of police of the Reno Police Department, former sheriff of Washington County. He became director of the Department of Public Safety, Richard Kirkland, and he basically came into his position by some sort of anointment, I believe, by then Governor Kenny Gwinn. They were very close. During the time I was there and I was president of the union, we came into some very serious evidentiary pieces of information that would eventually lead to me going in, as well as members of the Highway Patrol Association, going into the Attorney General's office, state of Nevada at the time, and the governor's office on September 5th and 6th of 2001, respectively, with serious allegations of criminal misconduct against the director and some of his cronies. And that led to a phone call on September 11th, 2001. I think everybody knows what happened that day, where I was threatened with my career as a state trooper of the Highway Patrol for whistleblowing. And I had to threaten the governor of the state of Nevada through a third-party source, a very dear friend of mine, he's gone now, Gary Wolf, to basically call his dogs off, or I would have a press conference of my own. As time went by, and I eventually retired from the Highway Patrol in April of 2003, we went to the U.S. Attorney for the state of Nevada at the time, Ron Rayshow, and he put us in touch with the U.S. Department of Defense Inspector General's office. They brought in an inspector by the name of Dwayne Bradley. He did a comprehensive investigation and basically went into then Governor Gwinn and then Attorney General Brian Sandoval. Again, I'm mentioning names today because names need to be mentioned. And these people need to be held accountable for their actions. The corruption in the state of Nevada has to stop. and I will do my part to make sure the corruption is brought to the surface and stopped. So basically, the Inspector General, Dwayne Bradley, went in there and says, here's the deal. You either get rid of this guy within a couple hours, or I'm going to issue federal indictments and name both of you co-conspirators. And then Mr. Kirkland conveniently retired. It was a forced termination, or it was forced retirement, I'm sorry. Mr. Kirkland was well connected. There are people within Washoe County in legal positions of authority, district attorneys, judges, attorneys, law enforcement, corrupt. And they have basically been waiting for me to find an avenue to come after me. And because of what I did to assist a friend of mine, Roger Hilligus, in August of 2019, they did just that. And in effect, what they did is destroyed my life as well as Roger Hilligus's life, and covered up the homicide of his mother. She was murdered. We have evidence to show, circumstantial leading to direct evidence. And I think, Doug, you understand what that is from being a firefighter.
Yes.
Circumstantial leading to direct evidence. Circumstantial evidence convicted Charles Manson. So that's how good circumstantial evidence can be.
So if you could kind of backtrack just a little bit about how you got involved with Roger and how this all occurred as far as his mother is concerned.
So I met Roger at an attorney's office in Reno, Chuck Kozak's office, one day. Just happened to be just be a coincidence. He was there, I was there, and we started talking. He had gotten a traffic citation up in Story County. I've been a deputy sheriff up there. I said, Roger, I don't know you, but just go pay the ticket. Well, I wasn't speeding. I go, dude, I worked up there. The county's corrupt. Just go pay the ticket. And he wound up fighting it, and he lost. But he brought to my attention some significant issues involving his mother, who was being mistreated and neglected at Stone Valley Assisted Care Facility in Northwest Reno. And he showed me pictures of her with a black eye. I don't believe his mother punched herself in the eye. She was wearing, her hair was miskempt. She was in disheveled clothing. And I come to learn this lady was a very proud and honorable, not honorable, but very proud and forthright lady. She belongs to the Reno Rodeo Association. She was a member of the White Hats, which is an exclusive club of that association. And she was a very prim and proper lady. And the pictures that I saw of her she was smiling when I saw her with her black eye. She probably didn't realize she had one. But pictures of her in unkempt clothing, her hair disheveled and stuff, she was not smiling. And so the bottom line was they were keeping her in this facility for the sole purpose of monetary. And this was set forth by Roger's sister, Robin Renwick. Basically, at one point in time, while Roger and Robin's parents were still alive, that being Susan Hilligus and Eugene Hilligus, she made a statement to Roger that it's time to divvy up the finances of the family, sell everything off. You go your way, I go mine. Roger at that time was power of attorney and had complete control and custody over his parents. And that got into a free-for-all with attorneys by the name of Todd Torvinen, who's unscrupulous and immoral, Ryan Earl, David Spitzer, both unscrupulous and immoral, Judge Egan Walker, corrupt, in the family court system. And so it became a battle to try and rescue his mother from an assisted care facility. And they had guardians. And let me make a point to the both of you right now. Guardianship of our elderly is illegal. Okay. I have a very dear friend of mine in the state of Florida, Christine Middleton, whose father, James Middleton, is being actively kidnapped, concealed, and human trafficked by none other than law enforcement agencies there. And I've been working with Christine very hard trying to find her father. But this is a prime example. And the same thing took place with Susan Hilligus. She did not want to be in an assisted care facility. She did not want to be anywhere except with her own son. Mothers with sons, fathers and daughters. Very common bond that's been throughout time. And so I met Roger. He came over to my house. He showed me the pictures. I said, I can't get involved, but I'll help you by paving the road for you to go to the Reno Police Department and voice your concerns. At that time, I thought the Reno Police Department was a upstanding agency. I beg to differ. They are just as corrupt as some of the cop agencies across this country. And I put him in contact. I actually called Chief Soto at the time. He's gone now. And Deputy Chief Oliver Miller called me back. So what do you want us to do? I said, just sit down with the man. He's got documents to show that he got we the jury verdict from a grand jury set out of Arizona. Remember, folks, grand juries are our fourth avenue of approach. A lot of people don't realize the power a grand jury possesses in the legal system across this country is very powerful, but people don't realize they can use that. And so he took those papers to the Reno Police Department, and they told him go up there, and if you get his mother out, fine. That's exactly what took place on August the 8th, 2019. I went up there. All I did was stand by. I signed in appropriately with my name, Stu and Gus, to see Susie. They brought her out. We walked out the front door. No harm, no foul. Until later that evening when it became a very much different scenario. Because Roger had fought for years with the family court. And like I said, Egan Walker is a corrupt judge. And if he wants to sue me, if anybody of these people want to sue me, bring it. I would love to have a day in court with any one of you. So he was able to get a court ruling from then Frances Doherty, who is another reprehensible, exclusive legal official. She's now retired from the bench. He fought this case, fought her rulings all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Not many people get to argue in front of the United States Supreme Court, folks. And Roger was able to get his case. It got remanded back to the lower court system, and it got shuffled off the buffalo, so to speak. But so Roger was a thorn in the side of the court systems and the legal system. I was a thorn in the side because I stood up for what's right. And the truth and justice of our legal system is being so much overrun by criminal corruption is unbelievable. And I'm going back on my experience as a former state and federal whistleblower when I was a state trooper with the Highway Patrol. All these people are connected. It's called connect the dots. And I believe, Jan and Doug, you can pretty much understand what I mean by that. This one's connected to that one's connected to this one, connected to that one. And if you piss off or make angry one of those people, you are walking into, quote unquote, the line of fire. All I did on that day was the right thing, was go there with Roger and the third person, Tracy Griffith, who was never charged. Why? Because we were the prize, not him. Roger being the thorn in the side, me being the former state and federal whistleblower. So we rescued his mother that day. He took her down to Southern California. I went to bed. I got a phone call from the Reno Police Department, Deputy Chief Oliver Miller, who said, "Were you with Roger Hilligus today?" That's on August 8th, 2019. Yeah, I was. What's going on, Ollie? Well, he kidnapped his mother. I go, okay. He kidnapped his mother? Did you hear yourself just say that? Well, you didn't have authority to take her. I go, well, wait a minute. He came to your department and you told him to go up there and take his mother out. So where's the rub in all of this? Well, you were involved and now you're in trouble. I go, oh, well, wait a minute. Time out. I didn't do anything wrong. All that played into the fact that eventually I was arrested at gunpoint after being a Reno resident for 50 years and being in law enforcement for 30. At gunpoint by 6 members of the Tactical Goon Squad who basically physically assaulted me and hurt my back, which has never been the same to this day. They greenlighted Roger Hilligus when they found out where he was, which was in Bellflower, California. Now think of this, folks. They shut down Bellflower Avenue, which is like shutting down 101. They cordoned off an entire city block. They evacuated the apartment building. They put 2 helicopters in the air and 2 snipers on the roof. The entire Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office SWAT team was deployed over the lies that the Reno Police Department put forth in a silver alert that the state of Nevada just basically rubber stamped. They were going to kill him. They greenlighted him. Greenlighting or swatting is a term used in law enforcement where if you have the shot, take it. Had Roger gone over to the window and presented a silhouette target, it would have been headshot. Had I been open carrying the day I was arrested, I would have been shot. And of course, eventually, 2 months after Susan Hilligus was rescued, she was murdered. And this has all been covered up and concealed by the Reno Police Department, the Washington County Sheriff's Office, the Washington County District Attorney's Office, various attorneys to include Todd Torvinen, Ryan Earl, David Spitzer, judges involved in the process include Ryan K. Sullivan, the Reno Justice Court. Again, I mentioned Egan Walker earlier. I also mentioned now Barry Breslow, Scott Freeman, Lynn Jones, all in the Second Judicial District Court. And every judge in that court does not have a valid bond or an oath, recorded oath of office, which makes them invalid in their specific positions in each department. Can you imagine the class action lawsuit that could come forth if people decided to take the bull by the horns on that aspect? I say hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars against the Second Judicial District Court in Nevada, which is operating in an invalid capacity.
Stewart, as you know, if you followed anything as far as the election activities go, all of that stuff gets kind of pushed aside anyway, even though you might be able to prove that, the different things, because we've had a fair amount of experience with taking things to court and all of that. So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Absolutely, Jen. And the scary thing is, and both of you understand this, since I was in the legal system for 30 years, since I did see a lot of things that made sense and a lot of things that didn't make any sense, I have foundational experience to make the statement that our legal system is broken. Specifically, since I lived in Reno, I didn't live anywhere else until just recently when I relocated to Northern California. The legal system in Washoe County is really broken and is criminally corrupt. And District Attorney Christopher Hicks is corrupt, and all of his subordinates are corrupt. I'm saying it right now, and if you want to, like I said earlier, if you want to take me on in court, I'm all for it, because I have the evidence to show that you are. The Reno Police Department falsified criminal police reports against both Roger and I. Falsified. They falsified testimony on the stand in our preliminary hearing. All to cover up. The bottom line of this whole nightmare situation is money. It all revolves around money. It revolves around money with my friend Christine, who I mentioned earlier, if her father passes away, the guardian gets $1 million. It all revolves around money when people are put in assisted care facilities, because they take your Social Security, they take your Medicaid, they take anything you have that's not nailed down, and they pay for themselves. And from Stone Valley being a D-rated assisted care facility where a previous employee sexually assaulted a resident of that facility, this is how disgusting this whole scenario has become. And again, didn't know none of this. This was a baptism by fire for me. 5 years of the systematic destruction of both Roger's life and my life at the hands of evil. And that's what I'm saying. I have God in my heart. And the people that don't have God in their heart don't survive very long in this world. But I have God in my heart. God has saved me for a purpose, Jan and Doug. And the purpose is to identify, expose, and take down this corrupt cabal that is going to be endangering more people, taking away their assets. And if they make noise, guess what? We already know about Britney Spears. We know about Wendy Williams, which just came up in the radar recently. A very, very dear friend of mine, Angelique Fawcett, out of California. Her godmother was Nichelle Nichols, who was Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek. Her own son was involved in her demise. She's become the head of Elderly Lives Matter. And for us to understand this, to understand what goes on in these diabolical, sinister places of assisted care living, I implore to all of your people listening today, and to both of you, please get the word out. Do not put your relatives, your parents, your loved ones, even dear friends in these assisted care facilities. They are nothing but the modern day Auschwitzes, which I've been chided for by the district attorney's office. But I'll continue to stand by that, because this is what's taking place, folks. And God is there to help us and protect our people. We're put on this earth for a reason, to care for one another. And it's
so if you don't mind me interjecting a little bit into your story here.
Yeah,
I spent, no, you're fine. I spent over 10 years taking care of my husband, who was bedridden. So I have a lot of experience with assisted care facilities and all of that. The only thing I'm going to say counter to what you're saying is that many of the people that are involved in that process are not evil. It's the system, it's the administration, it's all those other things. But here and there, you do find some good folks, because there were times when I was forced to put my husband into an assisted living facility for rehab, or because I just couldn't care for him at home at that point in time and had no other option. And I will say that what you have to do if you're forced into that situation is you have to be there every single day. Or if you can, be there, or have, rotate your family members to be there so that you can pay attention and so that they know you're going to be there. That's what I would say.
You make a very valid point, Jen, and let me correct myself a little bit. I appreciate what you said. Not everybody is bad. Not all cops are bad. Not all firemen
No,
are bad. Not
no.
everybody is bad. But there seems to be a significant amount of people in positions of power and authority that run roughshod over us. Now, you said
That's
that
true.
with your husband. God bless
Yep.
you. My mom, towards the end of her life, she suffered from UTIs, which is a common occurrence in
Yep.
elderly females. And I had to take her to the hospital, put her through rehab, and bring her home. And it was like a consistent circle. And finally, the people at rehab said, well, your mother doesn't have much longer. And, well, we're going to do the best I can. What are you talking about? Well, we're going to make her comfortable, stuff. I go, what are you talking about? Well, and to this day, it rings in my head. We don't think you have the patience or the ability to care for your mother in her final days. That was
Oh,
said to me.
that is a typical, I will have to affirm that because that is a typical thing that the family gets told. I was told there's absolutely no way you can take, my husband at the time had to be turned every 2 hours, okay, after the incident that caused him to be in this situation. And they said, there's no way you can take care of him at home. He has to be turned every 2 hours. And I said, well, from the charts that I've seen, you're not doing it. I will.
There you go.
And yeah,
God
and so
bless
we
you.
took him home. We took him
Yeah,
home.
and I took my
Yeah,
mom home too after we
yeah,
had a very well, I wouldn't say lengthy, loud discussion with the nursing supervisory staff
yeah.
at Manor Care. And my mom got to pass away in her room, listen to her favorite music, and me holding her hand. And I turned her every 2 hours too.
Yeah,
I did.
exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it can be done. It's not an easy experience and I was green, so
so
I
was I,
was
Jam. So was I. And
it was interesting.
it's very interesting we have this discussion today because people should know that there are legal authorities out there that will do everything in their power to subterfuge your efforts when it comes to caring for your elderly. The guardianship platform itself is illegal. It should not even be in place. All they're doing is garnering money from the estates and assets of our elderly and using it for their own specific. They don't care about it.
There are a lot of stories like that.
April
And again,
Park.
I want to make sure that we are fair to those folks that are working there that really do care about those people. It's good that there are folks that do care, but the
It is good,
system
folks.
is
There are,
broken. But the
yeah,
system is broken.
yes, ma'am. It is
Yeah.
broken, and I'm sorry to have made this such a lengthy situation.
Oh no, I wanted you to tell your story, and this is all part of your story.
Yeah.
So,
So what?
that's important.
So so the Washington County District Attorney, acting in conjunction with the Reno Police Department, forced myself and Roger into a plea bargain agreement. They were going to impanel an anonymous jury against both Roger and I, which is only used in organized crime cases. We knew at that point in time that we were going to get sent to prison. And of all the things that they could only hang their hat on was a burglary charge against both Roger and I. We are now both convicted felons because of this after being caught.
Why did you get charged with burglary?
Because in Nevada, if you enter a dwelling with the intent to commit a crime, you can be charged with burglary. So if I enter a dwelling,
So you stole nothing, but you
stole
were
nothing.
charged with burglary.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right
That's
then.
that's your esteemed Washington County District Attorney's Office trying to get a win at all costs. Again, they are
Wow.
dirty. They are dirty.
And
They are
I
corrupt.
can tell everybody that Stewart is telling you the truth because I pulled up an article so I could be informed. And the last line, I just read this and just a little bit ago, it says Nevada law says any person who enters a building with intent to commit a felony is guilty of burglary.
Correct.
But I thought, well, how does that pertain to what happened? Right? How does that pertain to what you guys supposedly did? I mean, what they were saying is that you stole his mom, right? I mean, isn't that in essence what they were saying?
No.
No?
They had nothing. They had nothing to prove. That's why Susan Hilligus was murdered, to shut her up, because she would have said she wanted to be with her son. She talked to me. They said she couldn't talk, she couldn't walk. Well, I beg to differ. She talked to me and she could walk and she was happy to get out of there. And the smile on her face haunts me to this day, because when she waved goodbye to me, she was 2 months away from her own demise, and that really, as a caring human being, and knowing what a sweet, wonderful lady she was, and I only got to meet.
So
Yeah.
So we're solution driven here, and I think that you might be as well. And so, what is the solution to these situations? As far as what is your recommendation from somebody who's, you experienced something pretty bad and got charged for something that's crazy, considering what I thought you were accused of. What's the solution to this?
The solution is to get intervention from somebody who's going to do something about it. We've gone to the U.S. Attorney for the state of Nevada, who now has left, Jason Frierson. Nobody wants to help us out. Nobody wants to look into this case. The district attorney's office is, as I said earlier, they're hanging their hat on, well, we got him. The attorney general for the state of Nevada doesn't want to get involved. Nobody wants to touch it. Why? Because they're following the script. And the script was given right from the get-go. We're going to get Stewart and we're going to get Roger, no matter what it costs, no matter what it takes. And they had all their key players in place. Brian Sandoval, as far as I'm concerned, I've known him since college, is dirty. And he's the one who put Breslow on the bench. And then Breslow turns around, buys his house. So you call that quid pro quo? I'd call it at least conflict of interest while he's the governor, while he's a judge. Breslow was also involved in a civil case against me, and he should have recused himself, but he didn't. He was put there for a reason. And all the little dominoes fell into play against both Roger and I. And we were forced into a plea agreement, because if we'd gone to a jury, anonymous jury, we would have been found guilty, because they handpicked a jury for anonymous jury. And this is all about, I run the show here, not you. You can look at that YouTube video on Barry Breslow. It's on YouTube, on Honor Nevada Judges.
I have seen some of that. And so for 5 years, you spent part of the time you were on a monitor, right?
Correct. Illegal monitor. It's
And
a Supreme Court case. Correct.
yeah, I'm puzzled. For a charge of burglary, it just seems like a lot, right? I mean, it just seems that way. And I'm no lawyer, I don't know, but
this was simple retaliatory and revenge fuel driven vendetta against me. I was speaking out the truth, and they tried to throw me back in jail for speaking the truth. So the judge said that, Judge Breslow at the time said that they weren't going to put a monitor on me, and they weren't going to throw me back in jail. But then 24 hours later, King's X, we're going to put a monitor on you. And he should have known. There's Tory Grady versus State of North Carolina, 2015 United States Supreme Court ruling that says GPS monitoring for tracking purposes is a violation of your Fourth Amendment and is illegal. And yet this judge did everything illegal under his power to say, hey, I run the show here, not you. And he actually makes a statement in a YouTube video. That goes for today and forever. And when he said that, I went, my God, did this judge just say that today and forever? That's absurd. But he is part of the cabal. And the cabal, if you make them mad, one of them, they come after you. And remember this, folks. This is not. I've lived in the state of Nevada, where I did live for over 50 years, almost 50 years. So I know where the dead bodies are buried, who buried them. I worked in a corrupt county besides Washoe, Story County, corrupt. I've experienced corruption in almost every single law enforcement capacity. And so you say solutions. Here's the solution. The solution is to take apart the legal system as it stands today and start putting people in powers of position that hold fort over legal authorities. And we're talking common people. You don't have to have a bar degree. British Accredited Registry is what bar stands for. And when attorneys represent you, they will represent the bar first, the court second, and the client third. That's how it's set up. And that's why everybody seems to lose when they hire attorneys.
Doug, you have a question?
Well, it's interesting because, our system of, our judicial system is equity for all. But when you look at it, you're going up against somebody with deep pockets. They have endless amount of money. They can go anywhere, do anything, and buy anyone they want. You are a private citizen. And what do you have? Maybe you can take a loan out on your house and buy some good attorneys. I doubt that, but who wants to spend all of their money doing that? So on the surface, it's not equal.
No,
you are at an extreme disadvantage.
And I'm on my fifth attorney of record. My first was Joey Gilbert. My second was Tom Pitaro. My third was Chuck Kozak. My fourth was Ian Silverberg. Now Judge Breslow assigned me Jeannie Hua because I'm appealing my judgment of conviction to Nevada Supreme Court. And they're saying I don't get to do that. And I'm saying, yes, I do. Under 28 U.S. Code 1654, I'm entitled to self-representation. See, what they're doing is they're trying to make sure that they can get their efforts forth, but they don't know the fact that I'm a little bit more savvy in the legal field as being a cop.
Exactly.
Well, Stewart, I hate to cut you off at this point, but we are kind of moving up onto our first break here.
Thank you very much.
And well, I thank you for coming and sharing your story because we are all about the story. And I think we should probably do a follow-up as you proceed through trying to get that Supreme Court case and other things. Maybe we can touch base again with you and have you on again and give us a follow-up for it.
Absolutely.
Are you willing to do that?
I'm willing to do that. And I just want to let you know, last statement, nobody should have their loved ones murdered and covered up by law enforcement. And that's exactly what's taken place with Susan Hilligus. And I will stand up for her justice until we get justice. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you for being with us, Stewart.
That's
Thank
good.
you very much. Take care.
All right. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. And I do need to do the little disclaimer thing because as a company, we have to do disclaimers and make sure that everybody knows that anything that is said on the show is our opinions. They are our, what we think. And so, you don't necessarily agree with all of that, but that's the way it works, right? So
that's what makes it interesting.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. And Stewart definitely had some things to say, and those are not necessarily the opinions of LaRue Press. However, he has every right to say it, and he has every right to voice his opinion, and that's what we like to do here. So hopefully you can appreciate his story, and I know that from the standpoint of assisted living facilities, there are many people who try very hard to do a good job. But at the same time, the system is pretty much against us all, I'm afraid. So on that kind of not so great note, I do have to take us to our first break, and we're just going to stay. You're going to see us, and when we come and go, and I'm going to fix your camera too. And we will be back for our second hour, and hopefully you'll still be hanging out and join us for that second hour. And we're going to talk, Soros radio stations, plane crashes, all sorts of crazy things. So, and then what are you reading? What kind of books are you reading these days? Or are you reading books? Are you reading something else? All right. So we'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. This is What's the Story, Part 2. And my name is Janice Hermson. I'm your host, and I'm here with Doug Ashby. And we are just happy to be here on this fine Tuesday, February 4th. Happens to be one of my family members' birthdays, so happy birthday to him. Happy birthday, Edgar.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Should we sing to him?
I don't think that would be much of a gift, do you?
People are here running for it.
But I thought I should mention him and let you know that we're thinking of you. So thank you for staying with us. It was great to talk to Stewart Handte. And he shared his story about, boy, so many different aspects of that, right? There was a lot to it. And when I had heard from him, I actually thought that the reason that and I think it was, the reason they were arrested was because they had taken Roger's mom. But it sounds to me like that was more or less something else going on in the background. So anyhow, but very complicated story, and all I can say is wow, right? So if you have not subscribed to my Substack, I hope that you will, and that is hermson.substack.com. And it's pretty easy to do. It doesn't cost you a doggone thing. And I would appreciate the follow if you don't mind. I try not to share too often, just when I'm getting ready to do things. And these days I'm doing a number of things right now. In addition to doing our What's the Story show, I'm also doing it's about accountability and also legislative activities. And I had hoped to be able to share some of that with you today because our legislature went into session yesterday in Nevada. However, we've got so much to do, I'm probably not going to get to any of that. However, I know that some of the, on one of the groups that I'm in, some of those folks are probably testifying right now. So... And had I been able to share that with you, I would. But we're going to do some talking about plane crashes, some of the Soros radio stations, and we've also got the USAID website that went dark. That was something, right, on Sunday? Did you hear about that?
The U.S.
USAID, and it's not USAid. Although that's what it sounds like, right? It is actually the United States Agency for International Development. So as I was listening today, I had turned on some of the mainstream news stations, and many of the people that they were interviewing were talking about, oh, they're taking away the aid. Well, it's really not an aid group, although they have given, so this was a press release that was sent out, probably by the Trump team, $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities, $70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $2.5 million for electric vehicles for Vietnam, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala, and $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. That's just a few of the different contributions our government have made to different countries doing, I guess, international development, right? So from the things that I'm hearing from, I listen to different stations, and they're talking about the fact that this is really intelligence work. They're really just, paying people off, I guess is what they're saying, to do intelligence work, to get secrets, right? I think there's better ways to get secrets, don't you?
Well, it was amazing. I think it was, let's see, what's today? Tuesday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Boy, time flies. they were talking about, again, listening to the different talking heads on the radio about President Trump putting in tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China.
Right.
And before noon, every negative story was coming out. Well, then as the day went on, the principals in all of this started saying, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. And now all of the media had to reverse their position and say, well, maybe the president is using this as a wedge, as a tool to get what he needs. But it isn't amazing that the first thing is let's attack Trump.
Right. And I think it worked really well in his first term when they did that people responded to it. People said, yeah, bad Trump, bad Trump. And this time around, he had enough popular support that it's not working as well. I'm sure it's working in some circles, and I'm sure that many folks believe that. I know people that believe that, he's not doing the right thing. And one of the things, and I don't know if you asked me last week about how I felt about something, and I couldn't answer you, I think. But I looked at this thing that they're doing with this USAID, and I thought, it seems really severe because they shut the website down. And I guess they've taken away some of the privileges of some of the folks, right, that are working there. Well, if you're shutting a group down, you're probably going to take away their permissions. If you're trying to gain control and figure out what's going on and people aren't cooperating, which is what I heard was happening, they weren't cooperating, then yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. My big question would be, is it legal? If they're doing it legally, then it's uncomfortable. It may not be a great approach, but if it's legal, then, if the other side did it, would I like it? No. So I don't know. So I can, do you understand where I'm going with that and what I'm trying to say? That, yeah, it is a difficult thing, but what's the right way to do it? Being nice didn't work. Asking for what's going on and where are you spending the money didn't work. They didn't want to tell. They didn't want to give their passwords. What are you going to do? Shut them down.
Well,
right?
It's going to be interesting because just on the way in here, I was talking, one of the targets for Trump is the Federal Education Department. I mean, it's a bureau.
Yeah.
And what they were saying, it's just another layer of education that is not needed.
Right.
And you look at these, they'll have 10,000 employees. And he says, hey, we're going to put them all out of work because we don't need it. That's true. Federal government never gets smaller. It always gets bigger.
Right. So, well, then I heard that Trump was being called a dictator. And then, as you talk about them, talking heads said, well, don't dictators want government? And they're getting rid of government. How is that being a dictator, right? No. I mean, and I get it. I'm not stupid. I do understand why people are saying that. But it's contrary to what a dictator would want. Sure, he wants control, but he wants control, at least by the words, for the American people. And if that's a bad intent, then I guess I'm for the bad intent, because I want to know too, and I want to know why they're spending that kind of money in those places, right? And what's the benefit? Okay, so maybe it looks bad up front, but there's something good in the background. I want to know what the good is.
Well, it's amazing because somebody will come up with a name like dictator, and then the rest of the liberal news outlets, oh, that's a great word. And all of them will pick it up and start using it with never a thought behind it. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, well, and I think that some of that has been diminished to some degree because of the alternate media and the fact that this administration opened up, I guess they had gotten rid of a whole bunch of the passes for the press, of the press they didn't like, and they gave them back their passes. And so those folks are back. Plus, they have one seat that I guess was the, and I might have this wrong, but I think it was somebody in the White House that it was their seat, and they gave it to alternate media. So one person from alternate media, I guess per day or maybe per session, gets to have that seat and ask a question. So they're not totally giving in and just having alternate media do everything, but they are allowing that voice to be heard. And I think that's important because that is we the people, right? I mean, if you're not a big heavy hitter and you don't have a big network behind you, you're alternate and you don't have the money or the wherewithal, but they have to get themselves to Washington, D.C. They don't get a free ride. They have to get themselves there.
What I'd like to see here lately is they're talking about the over the past year about President Biden's mental status and how
I heard on the radio today that there's a PR agency that's picking him up.
Right. Well, but
he could have used that before.
Excuse me. What was interesting is that the news media was covering for the president. I mean, grossly covering for him. And they're saying now they're starting to dig into this, and the news media was just out and out lying to the folks. That is not. The news media wants to be another division of politics, of government. And they're trying they're not supposed to be there. They're supposed to be independent. They're supposed to be the guardian of the Constitution. That's why we have the First Amendment. They do not do their job. They lie, they cheat, and they steal.
They seem
That's
to.
terrible.
Yeah.
Now, let's use your template for what we were just talking about. Are all of them that way? No, they're not.
Right.
However, there is certainly a bunch of them. But the good thing is that, just like they say, the 77 million that voted for Trump are now coming out and shouting these people down, saying, we want the truth. We don't want your spin on it.
Right. And I think that's really important. And I think that all those folks that were out there fighting for election integrity and all these other things, they need to stay diligent. They don't, just because Trump got in doesn't mean that things are fixed. They're not fixed. Well, we still have issues out there, and we still have people that want to run roughshod over the American people. And, I mean, think about, so I know that this is a topic that is very controversial as far as the J6 folks that have been given pardons. However, they were given the pardon. Like it or not, they were given the pardon. Biden pardoned a whole bunch of people and commuted a whole bunch of sentences. And, we didn't like that, but we had to live with it. Well, you got to live with this too. So what's happening apparently is initially they weren't letting them out. They were finding reasons. At one point, I guess they told some of the prisoners that, they were worried about a riot from outside or from them, the protesters like rushing the jail. Really? It was freezing outside. And
how about I'll take my chances?
Yeah. Yeah. So they weren't releasing them. Oh, I didn't take off my little note. We're not on a break anymore, everybody. We're back. So I forgot to take the note off. Anyway,
it's just,
but it's that kind of thing where there's not the cooperation, or as I said earlier about that one department that wasn't willing to give up passwords to Elon Musk. Like it or not, like what his position is or not, he's been given the authority. If it's not legal, then prove it and do the legal thing to do otherwise. But I think it's legal. I think he was given the authority to do what he's doing. So you don't have to like it, but you got to do it.
If we could advise the president, the first thing that I would say is quit making yourself an easy target. Guard your words just a little bit better than what you do.
Don't know President Trump then, right? I mean, come on. You know better than that. Yes. That's a joke.
He doesn't have a quiet thought, does he?
No.
I mean, just
not
like,
a bit.
hey, when they're talking about Canada, he says, hey, we'll just make them a state.
Well, that's you. Did I talk to you about that?
No.
Canada could have become a state.
How long ago?
Oh, when we were first writing the Constitution.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, but then once that got, everything got confirmed, then they were out. But they had that opportunity. So it's not as far-fetched as what it seems if you look at history, right?
Yeah.
They did have that opportunity. They chose not to, and so they are where they are. But, he's trolling him a lot of times, right? I mean, that's what that is. Well, here's something I wanted to tell you. I heard this earlier, and I just came up on Truth Social. It says, Trump reveals he's left instructions if Iran assassinates him and vows total obliteration. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I don't think I've ever heard of a president leaving instructions. Hey, if they assassinate me, there's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's legal either. So,
well, it would, yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. I think that as media, you need to define certain things. You need to say, you need to investigate it. Is it legal? If it's legal, how can you report that he can't do that? Well, yes, he can. It may not be the most appealing thing for him to do, but if it's legal, he can. And so you have to do the legal thing to counter it. And I wish they would just go that direction. I understand not liking it. I mean, there was a lot going on during the Biden administration that a whole bunch of us didn't like. But
like most of it.
But the thing is, he was the guy in charge. You had to deal with it. And it's a terrible thing to have to deal with.
Well, to set the stage properly, what you have to understand, I believe, is that that President Biden was told with student loans, you can't do that.
Yeah.
That's Congress. And he says, okay.
Right.
And goes ahead and does it anyway.
Right. It wasn't legal.
No, and
It wasn't
still
legal.
Not legal.
Nope.
And yet he persists with it.
Yeah.
Now, how can you be the president of the United States and just go completely against the United States Supreme Court?
Right. And so that's my whole point, is that if what President Trump is doing is not legal, then you have grounds to stand on.
Yes.
So, and we would stand there with you. We would. We might say, hey, we like what he's doing. But if it's not legal, he shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
So let's hope he's doing legal things. That's what I would say.
Well, a lot of it is, I believe, in the gray area,
and it could be. Yeah.
So,
I listened to a report. It was one of those call-in shows where they have it's a Washington, D.C. show, and I can't remember the name of it. Forgive me for that. But they have the Republicans, the Democrats, and the Independents. They call in on different lines. And so all these people were calling in, and there was a constitutional professor that was talking and answering these questions. And one of the things that he said was that he felt that the Supreme Court had kind of led President Trump in a certain direction to do certain things by their ruling. And I don't remember exactly which ruling it was, but his take on it wasn't that it was good or bad. He wasn't going either direction from my perspective. He was just basically saying, look, they opened the door. He's walking through. He's only going to get so far, and then somebody's going to stop him, right? So, that was his perception of it. Now, whether he was saying that it was because there's a partisan court, I don't know. He didn't make that clear in my, interpretation of listening to him. So I thought it was a pretty fair-minded review, I guess, for the most part. Not always.
Well, I don't believe, because a lot of people believe that the Supreme Court can supply direction. They do, but not overtly.
Right, and that's what he was saying.
What they do is when they make a decision, they're saying this law is either legal or it's not legal. Well, if it's not legal, then it opens up Congress to act on what they wanted to do. So does the Supreme Court supply direction? Yeah, kind of.
To some degree. And that was what he was saying.
Yeah.
He was saying that basically they kind of opened the door to him that he could pursue this direction. Now, whether he'll go far with it or only go a certain point and then he'll get called on it is another question. But this happens on both sides of the aisle. It's not one or the other. And it's just hard when you're not the one that you like what's going on. It's hard. And we just went through 4 years of that from our perspective. And now we're on the other side of it, which is hopefully 4 years of maybe having things done that we'd like to see done for America.
Well, he certainly can't keep this pace up for 4 years.
You don't think so?
No.
I don't think his people can keep up the pace. I'll bet he can.
Yeah, they can't
I'll
follow
bet
him
he
that
can.
fast.
That's right. You know, you listen to the media and they're like, there's so much. Well, we even feel that way. We're like, there's just so much. There's so many things that we should talk about, and we can't get to all of them. Like I say, the legislature's in session. We should be talking about that, but we got so many other things to talk about.
One of the things, just to kind of add it to what we're talking about, the 14th Amendment, which is he's challenging, President Trump is challenging birthright citizenship.
Right. It's true.
And what he
I think
wrote.
that's what you asked me about, and I said I didn't have a position on it because I hadn't read the amendment well enough to know.
Well, but I listened to a guy, again, he has a program on the weekend, Mark Levin, very, very intelligent attorney. He's a constitutional attorney. And he says the way the 14th Amendment, there are several clauses in there that no, it doesn't give this country the right to do that. So President Trump is completely within his rights to end that, to terminate that.
Well,
but it is so written, it depends on, just like they say, where you stand on a subject depends on where you sit.
That's
and
true.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
And part of that has to do with jurisdiction. And so that's going to be an interpretive type of situation as well, right? Because what do you consider jurisdiction for residents? Because some of that, it seemed from what I heard that, and I did read the amendment again, and it just seems that jurisdiction is a big part of it. And so that's going to be interpreted, and it just going to depend
I think
on
the
who
jurisdiction
interprets.
that they're talking about is if an illegal comes over here, let's say from Mexico, because we know Mexico, and there's like they say, there's 100 countries that they're coming. There's a
lot of countries they're coming from. Yeah.
Does somebody else have claim to that citizen? Yes, Mexico has claim to them.
Well,
They're a
and again,
Mexican
this is
citizen.
Yes, it's how it's written and how you interpret how it's written. So yeah, it's a dicey thing.
Okay,
but
now
I think it's
Janice,
important to be brought up. I think it's good that we all have to pay attention to it and say, hey, how do you feel about it? What do you think? Read the amendment. What do you think? And then tell your legislator what you think.
Well, absolutely. But one of the things that amazed me too, I think this is Supreme Court, by virtue of the fact that the position that they're in, know the Constitution. Well, why is it that the Supreme Court is divided between liberals and conservatives?
I don't think it should be, and I don't know that it always is.
No, but isn't that?
That's how the media interprets it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guarantee you, President Biden would probably have appointed somebody that I don't think we would have agreed with.
Well, that's very true. However, if you look at Justice Roberts, he's often accused of being too liberal, right? And
That's
he's
a good thing, isn't it?
right. It is, because he's supposedly a conservative,
yeah.
and yet he'll vote with the liberals. So that means that they can't always be biased. They can't always be.
Yes.
Otherwise, the conservatives wouldn't be yelling at him.
Yeah, but isn't that what we want from a justice?
I think it is. Even if we disagree, I think that we
Absolutely.
want them to
Absolutely.
rule according to how they interpret the Constitution. And it shouldn't be based on whether you're a conservative or a liberal. It should be, now you're obviously going to have bias. We all have bias, but.
Well, when I used to teach leadership, I used to, I used to, when talking to a group of firefighters, I say, all right, let's talk about the word prejudice. Is anybody in this room sitting here prejudiced? And I said, but wait a second, before you guys answer, I'm telling you, it's a trick question. So be careful when you raise your hand.
Yeah.
Is anybody here prejudiced? And you see them, they're squirming. I said, all right, let's talk about that word.
Yeah.
I said, do you like a particular restaurant? They said, well, certainly I do. Well, what does prejudice mean? It means to prejudge.
Right.
Then you are a prejudiced person.
Right.
Everybody is. But we always use that word to mean something negative.
Right.
And it's not.
Not
You just
necessarily.
have preconceived
Not necessarily.
ideas.
Yeah.
All of us do. Depends on what side of the tracks you're brought up,
It's
what
true.
high school you go to, what college you go to.
Right.
That's how you get to where you have a prejudice.
Yep.
But everybody does. Nobody is without prejudice.
Well, since we're going to talk about that, let's talk about John Kennedy, who recently called for the FCC to review what he's calling a partisan decision to approve George Soros-backed takeover of 200 radio stations, and they happen to be in his basic area of his state. So, which is Louisiana, if you don't know. He urged the Federal Communications Commission to review its decision to allow a company backed in part by foreign money and billionaire Democratic donor George Soros to obtain licenses for more than 200 American radio stations. The requested review by the FCC would include making certain that all required steps were followed according to FCC procedures and taking a closer look at the national security ramifications of the sale, because you have foreigners that are now going to own 200 radio stations. And I think most of them are in the Louisiana area.
Janice, this, I read that and I thought, oh my gosh, look at this. But what is the one thing that you're taught in college? The first thing that you do when you read an article is you go, what date was this written? That is written back in August and September. Wait a minute. That's when Soros was allowed. And here's the crux of the situation as far as I'm concerned. They have never seen an approval run through the government with that quickly.
Right. That's what his contention is.
Absolutely.
That's why he's suggesting that they relook at it, because this is dated January of 2025. That's when.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
So
that's
but
when Kennedy was talking about it. It was recent.
He did buy them before the November election.
Yes.
And he did, and it was on the fast track. The Republicans were pounding the table saying this will affect the November election. Well, it certainly did, didn't it?
Yeah. So, well, and here the facts of it are: it's for WWL AM radio in New Orleans, and he's saying that it's practically an institution in my state. You know how John Kennedy is. He's a funny guy. Anytime a broadcast license, as is the case with Odyssey, which is the company, is transferred, the FCC has to approve it. So Mr. Soros' purchase of WWL radio and the 219 other radio stations had to go before the FCC. And it did. And it went. The approval for Mr. Soros went through the FCC. Ready? This is John Kennedy. Like green grass through a goose.
At
It was
light speed.
it was a party line vote. It was last September. All three Democrats, there are 5 people on the FCC, all 3 Democrats said let it go, and it has been alleged that they short-circuited the normal process. What happened was what some members of the media have called the, and I quote here, Soros shortcut. They just got together and rammed it through. So his contention is that it needs to be looked at again. And the reason is not that he definitely disagrees with George Soros's positions, but it's not because of that he wants it looked at. He wants it looked at because they believe that America would be better off if we ran our government like the Communist Party of China. So,
oh no, I know. That's
and they're entitled to their opinion.
That's a step too far.
Right, but what he's saying is they are entitled to their opinion, but my people in Louisiana are entitled to know whose opinion they're hearing on the radio. So I think that this is really his job as a representative of the people. He knows about it. He knows what happened. He suspects it was ramrodded through, and he has a way of having them check and see if, in fact, this should be an authorized purchase.
Well,
so I mean, if I were on the receiving end of this, I'd be very angry. But But I still think it's appropriate.
One of the articles that I read said, look at history. Look at Germany in 1930. That's the one thing that Adolf Hitler wanted, was the radio stations, and he did indeed get them. And look what happened there.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
well, and that's why the media, the mainstream media, is so upset about the fact that people like us can broadcast live around the world, and nobody's controlling us. Nobody's telling us what we can or can't say.
yeah, but we keep the doors locked.
But you get the drift, right? Sure. So all he's saying is, hey, we need to find out if this was done appropriately. So it says, in January 2024, Odyssey filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and offered to trade shares of the company to lenders who would take the debt. George Soros took on $400 million in their debt for 50 cents on the dollar, became the largest shareholder in the restructured company. Several foreign entities also took on some of the debt, leaving the company with more than 20% foreign ownership. The FCC restricts the ability of companies with significant foreign ownership to obtain radio licenses. The agency, and I know what happened at America Matters when they were getting their license and how long it took and how much they had to go through. It was not an easy thing. So, and how long it took.
This plays right into what our guest was saying.
Right.
There are some people.
It's all about the money.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So the agency is supposed to investigate foreign-backed companies to make sure they would operate in the American people's interess, and before approving the transfer of any radio licenses. According to the FCC Commissioner, Brendan Carr, the Democrat-led FCC rushed the approval process to allow the transfer of licenses to the Soros-backed Odyssey without conducting the standard investigations. Well, all it's going to take is a quick audit of that particular file, and you're going to know whether or not they went through the standard licensing procedures, right? But if they don't give them to them.
But, one of the things with a subject like this is we're only getting the cliff notes of it. And the thing of it is where are these cities that will be Soros-backed radio stations? Are there other conservative stations within that same
But that's
media?
not the point. Even if there are, I don't care if there's 1 million of them. If this didn't go through the proper standard vetting, because that's really what it is. They're vetting it to see, if they're going to do what's in the best interest of the American people, then that's where,
But Janice, see, that's what I'm saying. If they would put this in a market, they say, hey, look, whatever, country or state X has all conservatives. Well, I think then Soros.
But not if it's foreign, and not if it's foreign entities, though. You've got to take a closer look, because
that's exactly my point. Is the Soros radio stations being bought balancing out a particular area?
Not if it's not in the best interest of the American people. That's the point.
But if
I know you're missing my point.
Yeah.
I know you are. We're not going to get on this one.
Okay.
So I do understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying to you is it doesn't matter if it's not about them being Democrats. That's not what it's about. It's about the foreign interests and whether or not they're going to work in the interests of American people. So if their prejudice
what you're saying is because they're a Soros-owned radio station, they're going to have other countries or whatever.
Yes.
But don't you think that the people in this country are smart enough to? Well, never mind.
But it's not about that. It's about the licensing procedure. I mean, I'm getting down to brass tacks here. It's the licensing procedure, and if they're not following the standard procedure, then it's not equitable.
Well, but
right?
even
because then you go in and they
follow the proper procedures. How did it get on the fast track?
It's all about the money, baby. It's all about the money.
That's exactly right.
It's always about the money.
I have something here that I think might fit because we're talking about different countries and what are going on. And I just picked this up. I thought, boy, this is interesting. Mexican cartels are targeting Border Patrol agents with kamikaze drones, explosives amid Trump's crackdown.
Wow, that's not good.
Is that terrible?
That's horrid.
That is. And here, let me read of it. The drug cartels are ordering their members to target U.S. Border Patrol agents with kamikaze drones and other explosives amid a crackdown at the southern border. An internal memo titled Officer Safety Alert cited social media posts and other sources for a warning to federal agents, the New York Post reported. Agents were reminded to be cognizant of their surroundings and should be wearing their ballistic armor and utilize their long firearms.
Wow.
You know what's?
I think this is war, folks.
I have to say this because this is a people thing. We again, when I was at the fire department, we would get alarms all the time for high-rise buildings, and we would go out there, and it would be a false alarm. But you have a lot of equipment going to that area, and what you do as an incident commander, you would submit a command post and wait till your first reports to find out what's going on. They say, well, it's a false alarm. Well, I was talking to my son about that, and he says, well, you know why they do that, don't you, Dad? And I said, no, I don't. And he says, well, if you were somebody on the other side of the law and wanted to attack us, wouldn't you want to know if so-and-so building put in an alarm, what's the fire department going to do? And you do the same every time. So consequently, what you would do is you would say, okay, look for an alternate place. Somebody might be watching you. You want to talk about something that'll drive you crazy as an incident commander. You set up a command post and, well, that'd be a good spot. Oh, no, look at that one over there. That would be good. It's endless.
Yeah.
You know, it is really, but no, that's what they do. That's just, that's the same thing with, Russia flying airplanes into our airspace. Why do they do that? They want to see what our reaction will be.
Right, which totally makes sense, right?
It does, absolutely.
It's very logical.
But can you imagine a kamikaze? Who was Mr.
I know, that's crazy.
Who was Mr. Kamikaze? Well, he's no longer with us, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hey, I do want to mention, it was this morning, you may have already heard it, but the Senate Intelligence Committee advanced Tulsi Gabbard as the DNI nominee in a 9-8 vote. So she's going to go to the full Senate. And I guess it was either early this morning or yesterday that Robert Kennedy also got advanced with a 14-13 vote. So the two of them are moving on. They haven't done Kash Patel's vote yet, as far as I know, so it hasn't come out of committee yet. But very interesting to see this. So it'll be interesting to see who votes and how they vote and whether or not they're going to allow Trump to have his nominees. This
is just trying to throw cold water on the president's agenda.
Right.
It's pure and simple.
Right. It is. Well, and you have to admit, though, Tulsi Gabbard and Robert Kennedy both were Democrats, became independents, and then I guess Tulsi Gabbard did become a Republican. But, different thought processes.
But isn't that good to have somebody that sees both sides?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think it's interesting, and that's why I want to see how people vote, because do you vote party lines? Well, these people were your party. What happened, right?
Yeah. You still have friends over on that side
I would
of the
think
aisle.
so. Yeah,
sure.
I would think so. So I think it's interesting to see if they're really, well, like we were talking about the justices, can they see beyond their bias? Can they see beyond the party line stuff? Both sides, right? I mean, you should be looking at what is this person going to do? And are you faithful to your president? And I mean, there's so many different levels of that. So
let me kind of throw out a scenario. Do you think that the president is there to, any of these people that are on the proverbial fence, the president calls them and said, hey, go ahead and vote for me a little bit down the line. I will approve some of the things for your district.
Oh, I'm sure they do that.
All the time.
Of course they do.
Follow the money.
Yeah, that's right. It's always about the money. Always, always, always. So let's see. Oh, well, lots of news out there. And I guess the president is meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu.
That's a
And
good thing.
they're scheduled, oh, and they already had their press briefing, their news briefing at 3:10 Eastern time. So that's already been done for over an hour. I actually watched part of it.
I like Netanyahu's attitude.
Easy for you to say.
You are against us, we will find you, and we will kill you.
Well,
That's pretty
it's
straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. That's true. Yep. So, yeah, Epic Times is putting out something that says the mental health industry is incentivized to keep patients medicated. That's according to Cooper Davis. So, that wouldn't be, I mean, when you look at all the pharmaceuticals that are out there, every time you turn on, and I don't even watch much TV, but when I do turn it on, the commercials are always about a pharmaceutical product. And when John was alive and he watched TV, oh my Lord, every other commercial. And he was watching not even mainstream like news type stations. He was watching really lighthearted stuff. And every commercial was about some sort of drug that you needed to take to do something. And then it was always, oh, side effects could be death, and you're like, and I'm taking that. Why? Why do I want that drug? You got to be kidding. He actually had, when I've probably told you this story, he actually had something that they prescribed for him. And it was for his asthma or something. I don't remember. But it was an inhaler type of thing. And the first thing on the list was possible death. And I have to be honest with you. I took that thing and it went immediately into the trash.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to kill him, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to find a different way to do it.
I was taking cholesterol medication. And I still do, but my history of it is sometimes I'd take it, sometimes I would. Finally, my doctor said, "Quit reading what the adverse conditions are going to be. You'll be okay. Use it."
Well, that particular one we'll talk about offline because I took John off his. He was supposedly needed it. And I didn't tell them I took him off. And guess what happened?
He got better. He was happier.
No, his cholesterol went down.
Oh, really?
It did.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. That's all I can say. And of course, they probably thought the medicine was working. I didn't make them any the wiser. It wasn't important. Right? And one neurologist that was not his doctor, but he was a neurologist, told me that the cholesterol medicine with because he had multiple sclerosis, and this is not medical advice, let me make sure I tell you that, but because he had multiple sclerosis, by giving him this cholesterol medicine and him having a problem with short-term memory, it was actually making it worse.
Really?
Yep, it was making his short-term memory worse.
Well,
and so he said you have to weigh, right? You got to look at it and you got to weigh the difference. Is it that important, or did you get yourself stuck there?
That's okay.
You did something to your
oh, maybe it's my foot.
Oh yeah, you're stepping on the cord. So Doug's trying to move and he can't move because his head is stuck because he's stepping on the cord. So
I had the microphone up my nose here.
We're here to entertain you. What can we say?
One of the things when the cholesterol medication first came, it said it's pretty much like aspirin, where they say aspirin, they still don't know all the beneficial effects of taking aspirin. Right. I mean, it's so many tangents. They said cholesterol medication are pretty much the same way. We're just waiting to see what all the blessings are.
So you're the experiment.
No,
you don't want to admit that.
I'm back on it right now, and
there you go.
Do I notice a difference? No, but
we all make choices, and we all have to make those decisions, right? Do you have a book today? Because we're going to run out of time if I don't get you to that.
Yes, I do.
And I want to make sure everybody we'd love to know what you're reading. So if you want to drop something in the comments or on my Substack, I'd love to know what you're reading and what you like to read, because that's what we do. We're all about reading.
And this is very apropos for what we've been discussing.
All right, perfect.
The title is The Man Behind the Curtain.
Ooh.
Inside the Secret Network of George Soros.
Oh, how about that?
And this is January of 22, so it's hot off the press. Close to 1,300 ratings. And let me read this to you because it gives you a synopsis of who George Soros really is. George Soros's web of influence is documented and exposed. No one else in modern politics has anywhere near the power and influence of George Soros, both domestically and internationally. Backed by tens of billions of dollars he's accumulated throughout his career, Soros has his hand in influencing the media, activist groups, colleges, presidential elections, global elections, local U.S. politics, and much more. Soros has earned himself a reputation as a boogeyman character on right, and nowhere else will you read such an extensive documentation of his influence as in this book. Again, it's the man behind the curtain, inside the secret network of George Soros, by Matt Palumbo,
yeah.
It gives a 4.6 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, Matt Palumbo, Richard Cefalos, and Post Hill Press. From the description, very obviously conservative based.
I would think.
Not at all, on the left. So just keep that in mind if that's something you want to read. And if you're on the left, you may not like what you hear, but it's always good to listen to other sides.
It is,
I think.
Well,
So,
I kept hearing the name George Soros thrown around, tossed around. I never understood exactly who he was.
right.
How does somebody make tens of billions of dollars?
He did.
Yeah.
And now his son has it all. Because he's really not, from what I've heard anyway, he's really not doing all that right now. He's kind of turned it over to his son.
Well, if he's not
So-
doing good, that's why he did it in the first place. Oh, is that my bias?
Could be, very well could be. So that is Doug's pick, the man behind the curtain. And I will tell you that Debbie, I don't have a lot of time, but Debbie recommended that I read a book. So hang on, I'm going to tell you which one it is. I started it, Debbie, but I have not finished it. There's so many things I need to read, and so what can I say? It's called By Any Other Name. And I've started the book. It's interesting. It kind of jumps between two time periods, and probably because I had said that before, it was why she recommended it. But yeah, By Any Other Name. Hang on a second. I'm going to pull that up. I got to do my thing here. You guys can see what I'm doing, right? Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good in your ears, wasn't it? Oh, I'm not a very good typist today, am I? Bear with me. I'm going to get it. By Any Other Name. And it's Jody. There it is. So here we are. And I don't know how to say Jody's last name. Picoult? Picoult? I'm not sure. Anyway, she is a New York Times best-selling author, and it's about two women centuries apart, one of whom is the real author of Shakespeare's plays, who are both forced to hide behind another name. When I first started it, I will say that I was like, I'm not sure I can get into this. And then as I continued just a little ways, I was like, oh no, this is good. So thank you, Debbie. So I will recommend it to others. Jody Picoult, I guess, By Any Other Name. And I happen to read a lot of Audible books, but they also have it in paperback, in hardcover, whichever you'd like. So there you go. Paperback looks like it's $22, but I'll bet you can find it locally for less. And then hardcover, look at that. Hardcover is $18.77. Do you think they want to get rid of their hardcovers? Right? Oops. Oh, and Microsoft wants to give us a deal. And if you go on Kindle, it's $14.99. So there you go. I hate to tell you that we do have to go, however, and because our time is up.
Okay.
That was very quick, and we thank Stewart for being with us in the first hour.
Yes.
Stewart Handte, and hopefully you'll get a chance to listen to that if you have not. And Doug, I thank you every week for being here with me and hanging out for a couple hours.
You're
and
welcome. Yeah.
Bringing some good stories. And
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
It's been fun. It really has. I hope our listeners were rather diversified, and
Yes.
we just bring things that are interesting to you, and we put our spin on it, and we are conservatives, but we try not to get locked into that.
Right. Yeah, hopefully see both sides of the issue if we
Absolutely.
can. We try.
Yeah.
We'll do our best, but you'll tell us if we don't.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, and we'll see you again next week.
All right.
We'll be here.
Okay.
All
Bye.
right.